so nice and quiet. I'd like to welcome you to the white coat ceremony for the CMSRU class of 2020. In a couple seconds, the class will file in by their advisory colleges, and you'll learn all about those today as well. We know that this will be a very special day in their lives, and it will be in yours as well. It's something I look forward to every year. You all look great. Sit down. It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Annette Raboli, our interim dean, to begin this wonderful event.
Good afternoon. Welcome, family and friends of the class of 2020. This is the second most important ceremony that we have at CMSRU on an annual basis. Medicine, as you know, is rich with traditions and ceremonies, symbols, and customs. Second most important, I say this because the most important will be your graduation day. But today is the day that you're officially welcomed by the CMSRU community into the profession of medicine. So this is a milestone event for all of you and for your families. I also want to say that I'm going to ask all of you to stand again, and I'm going to ask you to stand and face your family and friends. These are the people who have been dreaming the dream with you, who have been on the journey with you, who have supported you, who have loved you, and I think you owe them gratitude. So please stand, face them, and give them a round of applause. This event is so important to our community that several dignitaries have joined us today from the university, from our major clinical affiliate, Cooper University Healthcare, from our medical school board, and in addition from our team, our leadership team, all of our deans. I'm going to ask them to please stand and be acknowledged. Representing the medical school board, Dr. Edward Viner. Representing our university, Rowan University, Dr. Jim Newell, Provost. Representing Cooper University Healthcare, Chief Physician Executive and newly named Associate Dean for Clinical Affairs, Dr. Anthony Mazzarelli. We also have several of our departmental chairs in attendance as well. Dr. William Coker, It's hard to follow Dr. Coker. Dr. Alan Salina. Dr. Philip Dellinger. Dr. Michael Goodman. And Dr. Roland Schwarting. I'd also like to acknowledge our deans and ask them to please stand. Dr. Susan Perlis, Dr. Jocelyn Mitchell-Williams, Dr. Larry Weisberg, Dr. Rose Kim, Dr. Harry Mazurek, Dr. Bill Coker, Dr. John McGeehan, Dr. Anthony Mazzarelli again, and Dr. Erin Pukanis. I'd like to invite Dr. Jim Newell to come up and say a few words to all of you on behalf of the university.
Thank you, Annette. President Hushman sends his regrets for not being here today. He woke up ill this morning. I did point out to him he would be coming to a room laden with physicians, but he decided not to infect the entire audience, so we thank him on his behalf. Now, the question that many of you have in your mind is, what's a provost? So the provost is the chief academic officer of the university. Each of the colleges is led by a dean, and the deans work for me. Or as my 16-year-old daughter explains to her friends, he's the vice president, you know, kind of like Joe Biden. I can't tell you how exciting this is to be here today, and what an impressive group of students this is. This is 88 students selected from a group of essentially 6,000 students. That is a stunning achievement. During the course of the ceremony, you will learn all about the significance and the symbolism of the white coat, but first and foremost, it's a statement of professionalism and commitment, a commitment to the noblest of professions, and to ensuring that you are going to become the best physicians that you can possibly be. And that starts now. But you also bear the name of Rowan University on that same white coat. And it's a statement of the relationship you will always have with the university and our commitment to you that you are going to be the ambassadors of the university for the future. When I have looked at the credentials and the quality of this group, I can't tell you how excited I am. And so parents, I will say this to you. You are the only people who can be more proud of this group of students than I am. Congratulations and welcome to Rowan University.
Thank you so much, Dr. Newell. I think it's important to mention that Dr. Newell has been with us on this journey of creating the medical school from the very beginning, going back to 2009, and he was instrumental in developing the curriculum, the innovative curriculum that all of you are a part of, so we owe him a thank you for that. I'd now like to turn to our students, and I want to say a few words to you. Just some personal words, although it's in the context in front of your family and friends and others in our community. Dr. Newell mentioned that you are a group of 88, chosen by our faculty, because the admissions committee is a committee of faculty, chosen because the faculty felt that you had the right stuff. We're a school that is very, very driven by our mission. And that is to serve underserved populations, to improve access to health care for all. That's the sacred center of our school. And when you were chosen, that also brings on some responsibility as well, to be part of a select group of 88. You're the future of medicine. The future of our profession depends on you. Welcome to this noble profession. The white coat itself, that's become a symbol of the medical profession, is a relatively recent addition against the backdrop of thousands of years of individuals being involved in the healing arts. It's a symbol that started in the 19th century. And the reason for that was at that time there was a lot of mysticism and quackery in the healing arts. And individuals wanted to add a scientific basis to this. So they decided that having a white coat, which represented laboratory-based investigation and science, was the way to go. These ceremonies are relatively recently developed. The Arnold Gold Foundation supports these ceremonies, and the very first one was at Columbia, but it's also a relatively recent event. And you'll see a lot of symbolism in medicine, ceremony, etc. But I say to you that a symbol is just that. It's the person that wears the white coat and what they do. Some physicians choose not to wear their white coat. Dr. Annette Feingold said that today is the first time she's put a white coat on since she was a medical student. So I ask you to put it in the context of that. It's who fills the white coat. I wanted to mention a few things. One of the reasons for these ceremonies is to put an emphasis on other skills. And within our mission and our core values, we embrace professionalism, diversity, respect for others, social justice, etc. So I want to outline just some of the skills that you will develop in addition to medical knowledge during your time here. Altruism. Your primary concern is the welfare of your patient. Accountability. To your patients, their families, to the profession of medicine, to your colleagues, but also to society. Excellence, pursuit of excellence, pursuit of lifelong learning, not just being happy with getting by or passing, but the pursuit of excellence in all you do. Duty, again, care of your patients is your primary concern. Honor and integrity at all times, and respect for others, your patients, their families, your colleagues, other health professionals in your environment, respect for others. I ask you, when you put on your white coat, think about this, the moment you put it on, because today's a big day, it's the first time you're putting on this symbol. Think about how it feels. Okay, it's going to feel a little awkward at first. It's going to feel a little stiff, okay? But trust me, by the time you finish your education here, that white coat will be well worn, well loved, and will fit you very, very well. You'll be the person filling that white coat. Then you'll be ready to move on to your next white coat as an intern, resident, and you'll get a new white coat. It'll be a long white coat. And once again, the first time you put that on, it will also feel awkward. It may feel awkward for the first month or 2 or 3 that you're wearing it, but eventually you will also fill that white coat. And once you fill that white coat, you're ready to move on and become a practicing physician. So with that being said, those are my personal words to all of you. I'm delighted. I think this is a fabulous class, and I look forward to your 4 years here. I want to now introduce our guest speaker today, our white coat speaker, Dr. Nate Link, and his bio is in your booklets. Dr. Link has both an MD and a master's in public health. His current title is Chief Medical Officer of the Bellevue Hospital Center, and he's an Associate Professor of Medicine at NYU School of Medicine. He earned his MD degree from Washington University in 1983. He completed his internship and residency in internal medicine at Bellevue Hospital and NYU School of Medicine. And then he went on to receive an MPH with a concentration in health policy and management at Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health. He served as the chief of the Bellevue Primary Care Clinic in the late 80s to 1990, and then chief of the medical clinics from 1990 to 2001. He was also chief of medicine at Bellevue from 2001 to 2012, and has been the chief medical officer since 2012. You could read the bio. He's had a very, very distinguished career. But the important thing is that he symbolizes and he fills his white coat. That's why he was asked to be here today. And we asked him to talk about the situation during Hurricane Sandy when he and his team of physicians evacuated Bellevue Hospital. It's a very, very compelling story. Also importantly, it needs to be said that he is the husband of our own Dr. Annette Feingold, as our faculty member who's very actively involved with our school. So please join me in giving Dr. Link a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, you know I have a special in, so that was revealed. I know what a special day this is, and so I'm very honored to be invited as the person to give the keynote address. I want to let you know this isn't a speech or a lecture. I'm simply going to tell a story with words and pictures, which I think has some important lessons for today's ceremony. My story begins in 1736 with the birth of Bellevue Hospital as an almshouse in Lower Manhattan. Over many decades which followed, Bellevue grew in size and purpose until it became a full-fledged hospital complex by the mid-1800s. As the major public hospital of New York City, Bellevue contributed many firsts to American medicine: the first hospital-based ambulance service, the first maternity ward. It boasted a renowned surgical amphitheater with many breakthroughs in surgical technique, and continued to grow in size and importance. In 1939, a magnificent new building was opened to serve as the hospital for nearly 40 years. In 1973, a new building was constructed behind this one, still known today as the New Bellevue, or more affectionately, the Cube. And it continues to serve as the inpatient facility even to this day. This is the subject of my story, the tale of Bellevue's extraordinary experience during Superstorm Sandy, a story which holds special relevance to today's ceremony, which I will explain at the end. I came to this version of the hospital in 1983 as an internal medicine intern. After completing my training, I stayed on for the next 30 years, growing in leadership responsibility till I became the chief of medicine in 2000 and medical director of the hospital, my current job, in 2012. Along the way, I witnessed a number of stressful events. The first was 9/11, which threatened to be an enormous challenge in mass casualties for our hospital, but as you know, the challenge never materialized, as the case fatality rate approached 100% and there were simply no survivors, apart from a few firefighters with smoke inhalation. In 2003, we experienced a prolonged blackout, which for a period of several hours led briefly to a complete loss of power to our institution, including our backup generators. During the blackout, we learned 2 lessons that would prove valuable during Superstorm Sandy. The first is a technical one. Our engineers realized when we lost all power that the electrical closets in the southwest corner of the main hospital building could be connected to a generator in an adjoining building, maintaining power in that corner of every floor. By moving intensive care patients to the southwest corner, we were able to maintain the functioning of their ventilators and electrical equipment after the main generators failed. We learned a second important lesson in that crisis, which would prove critically important in our response to Superstorm Sandy, but I do not want to spoil that surprise. Flash forward to October 2012. By this point, Bellevue is a modern hospital of 800 beds with a broad array of service offerings: cardiovascular surgery, neurosurgery, first level 1 trauma care, and an extraordinarily large inpatient psychiatric service with 350 beds. Not to mention a large inpatient forensic population of 90 inmates behind bars. You may recall that Superstorm Sandy was predicted with great accuracy, especially by the European Meteorologic Service, which projected 4 days ahead of schedule a direct hit upon New York City. So on the Sunday evening before the Monday storm, we organized the entire hospital and requested a full complement of staff to stay overnight. These are physicians in-house getting prepared on Sunday. Here's the Medicine Mini Command Center. And here I am discussing plans with leadership of the medicine department and wearing my telltale Command Center vest. This vest happens to be one of the perks of being medical director. And here are the nurses also in place, ready for the storm. All the staff stayed over Sunday night in case travel would be hindered by the storm. By Monday afternoon, the storm really picked up with high winds and rain. At this point, no one could come or go from the hospital, and we were locked in. The command center was open, and we were functioning as a leadership team. During this time, I distinctly remember asking our director of facilities, what was the worst case scenario? His answer, that water would flood the basement and breach the submarine doors, knocking out our power and forcing us to go on emergency backup. That would be plan B. Fortunately, the generators are on the 13th floor, safe from any effect of flooding. But as you may know, it's no fun being on backup generators. They power the hospital at a much reduced capacity. Most areas are dark or dim. Only some of the power outlets are operational, and only one elevator is working. Plus, you're down to your final solution. There is no backup to the backup. Even still, at that moment, I did not realize that just a few hours later, I would be longing for that worst-case scenario to be true. There was really no issue until an ill-timed overlap of tides and storm surge caused the East River to rise 12 feet at about 9 p.m. In a short time, the river overflowed its banks, washed over the FDR Drive, and flooded the city. Many streets in Lower Manhattan were totally submerged, as were the taxis and the subways. Oh, this picture is actually a fake, but I think there was a lot of water. By comparison, here's the FDR Drive during a typical rainstorm. This is Bellevue on the left and the East River on the right. Note the exit sign for 34th Street. Here it is during Sandy, completely submerged, with the East River extending all the way to the Bellevue Foundation. Once the waters reached the hospital foundation, we were toast. It was as if we had no walls or foundation. The 2-acre basement immediately filled up with 10 feet of water, which instantly breached the submarine doors, knocked out all power, wiped out our heating and ventilation systems, destroyed our water and fuel pumps, and incapacitated all of our elevators. Even cell phones were marginally operational because all of Lower Manhattan lost power at once. This is the photo of our chief of medicine sitting in the dark. I will leave this in place while I tell the next part of the story. So now the backup power is still working, dimly lit, but not a complete blackout. The engineers return to the command center after assessing the damage. They have grim news. While the backup generators are working fine, they are dependent on fuel, which flows up from the ground level tanks via the fuel pumps, which are now, of course, incapacitated. We have less than 2 hours of fuel left on the 13th floor. Shortly after midnight, we will lose all remaining power. At this point, I now make the rounds to all the important areas upstairs, sharing the news about the deadline and taking notes. Getting large oxygen canisters to the bedsides of ventilated patients, assigning the folks who will do the ambu bagging when the ventilators fail, switching off the electrical IV pumps. This is all good because everybody needs something to do. The director of the ICU convenes an ad hoc ethics committee to prioritize our response to the patients in cases resources are not available for all of them. Maybe only some ventilators will have access to an outlet. In the recovery room, I learned a chilling piece of news. A post-op cardiac surgery patient is on an LVAD, left ventricular assist device, which is electrically powered. The CV fellow, Dean Smith, assures me that this patient cannot survive without the LVAD. Without a solution, he will die at midnight. This has now turned into a classic Hitchcock suspense thriller. Something very bad is about to happen, and the audience is in on it because the clock is ticking in open view. At this point, the countdown has begun. Back at the command center, the facilities people suggest we go to Plan C. Remember Plan C from the blackout of 2003. All patients with critical power needs will be moved to the southwest corner, and we will use extension cords to connect their devices to the electrical closets, which will be tied into a generator in the next building over. That one has fuel. Great, it's a plan. So now back up to the floors, instructing everyone to move their patients. The LVAD patient will go into an OR in the southwest corner, and we will connect the LVAD device to the electrical closet via a very long extension cord. Meanwhile, Dr. Smith decides to walk over next door to NYU's main hospital, 2 blocks north of us, to get a backup battery. This will buy another hour just in case. He actually goes out into the teeth of the storm, enters Tisch Hospital, which is also completely dark, secures a spare battery for one of the upper floors, and he brings it back to Bellevue. On the peds floor, I hit a snag. The senior resident in the ICU tells me that one of their young ventilated babies is too delicate to take any risks on the power. As soon as the storm dies down, she will personally transport him by ambulance to Cornell, 40 blocks north. I try to convince her to trust our plan, but she will have none of it. She actually says, I don't believe you or your plan, and we are going to Cornell. This is just outright insubordination. And I feel I've lost control. So I contact her service chief, who convinces me to agree with the evacuation of the child. And she does eventually, at 2 a.m., walk this patient down 8 flights of stairs in the dark and escorts him to Cornell by ambulance. As midnight approaches, I go back up to the floors to confirm success of our Plan C. To my dismay, the southwest corner is dark on every floor. Extension cords everywhere, but nothing on power. On the surgery floor, my worst fears are realized. I learned the generator could not be successfully connected, and our Plan C has failed. It is now midnight. I find Dean and share the news. His patient has 1 hour to live, the hour of the backup battery. But that is it. Realizing that we have no solution in sight, I look down awkwardly at my shoes and I say, let's talk about your other patients. In retrospect, that exact moment becomes the low point of my Sandy experience, and I remember it very well to this day. Now back down 11 flights of stairs to the command center with a heavy heart. I enter the room with my bad news, and to my surprise, everyone is smiling. They look elated, and I'm befuddled. What has happened? Follow me, one of them says, and she brings me to the north stairwell. This is what I see. Hundreds of staff are lining the stairwell from the ground floor to 13. They're waiting for something. What? They're waiting for fuel. The National Guard has arrived with fuel canisters, which are being transported up the stairs by a Bucket Brigade. Here's our Chief of Medicine, Doug Bales, showing how it is done. Grab, carry, pass. Grab, carry, pass. There is enough fuel here to keep the hospital running indefinitely. And as it turns out, this went on for 4 days. The secret we had learned during the blackout of 2003, which I held back earlier, was the idea of a Bucket Brigade. During that blackout, we had delivered food trays throughout the hospital by a human chain in the stairwell, just like this. We just needed the National Guard delivery, paired with our institutional memory, to come up with this Plan D, which saved our hospital from ever losing its power during Superstorm Sandy. The National Guard continued to help us in every conceivable way. So now relief sets in, and we begin to think about how we will otherwise manage with all our systems down. By the next morning, the storm is past. Actually, it's sunny. But we realize the prognosis is not so good. Since the water pumps are destroyed, we are going to run out of water when the roof tank becomes empty. And at this point, we realize we need to move out all the high-risk patients. We spend all day transporting our intensive care patients, dialysis patients, neonates, OB cases, and inmates. More than 100 altogether out of the remaining 500. It is a long story which I will not share, but I suffice to say a lot of planning is involved in identifying receiving hospitals, sharing information, and coordinating the moves. All the patients need to be transported downstairs using portable stretchers called sleds because we have no working elevators. Fortunately, the National Guard is here to help. 150 members strong, and they do all the heavy lifting. We set up a system to check the patients out as they leave the hospital so we can account for everyone. As the first ICU patients are leaving Tuesday afternoon, I begin to be concerned. Shouldn't someone accompany each one for safety? But there's so many. As I'm feeling overwhelmed by this prospect, a large group of emergency department residents suddenly shows up at the front door. How can we help, they ask. I can describe what that moment felt like. If you've ever seen the second Lord of the Rings movie, please recall the moment when the defense of Helm's Deep is about to crumble and all hope is lost. Then who comes marching in? The elves. Single file with bows and arrows. They arrive on the scene to save the day. And that's exactly how I remember the ED residents, as elves with bows and arrows. And thank goodness they did arrive, because one of them accompanied an ICU patient being transported to Cornell. And during the ride, the patient had a cardiac arrest and required resuscitation. The alert resident noticed the IV tubing for his medication was kinked and was able to restore his vital signs. She saved his life, and because of this, no patient was harmed during our evacuation. By the end of the day, the vulnerable patients are gone, but the staff are getting restless. The lack of running water is beginning to create an unsafe situation. We cannot flush the toilets, which are being used multiple times for both number 1 and number 2. You get the picture. By Wednesday morning, it is obvious that we have to evacuate all remaining patients, so the orders issued up and down the line in all the city corridors of power. A protocol for the emergency management system is activated, and we proceed with a full-scale evacuation which lasts all day. Hospitals all around the metropolitan area are activated to provide beds. Ambulances are summoned from far and wide, and every one of our patients is taken to an outlying hospital. Apparently, the only ambulance not pressed into service is this one. The psychiatry patients are a special problem, as it is difficult to find beds. At one point, the government authorities tell us that they have found an abandoned warehouse in Poughkeepsie, which will be outfitted to receive our psych patients. Our psychiatry chief says absolutely not. They will need proper beds like everybody else, and we will wait until they are ready. She holds her ground, and later we learn that proper beds are found for all of them. Now realize the psychiatry service has to evacuate 300 plus patients, mostly schizophrenic and homeless, from the 19th to the 21st floors of the hospital. The plan is to escort them down the stairwell in groups of 6 with 2 staff members and lead them onto minibuses. When the first group of 6 reaches the exit door, 3 of the patients immediately bolt for freedom. They successfully evade a gauntlet of hospital staff and police and disappear into the night, remaining at large for several weeks until they reappear one by one, safe and sound, in various ERs around the city. Following that fiasco, the 300 patients are escorted one by one with 2 escorts into waiting ambulances. The evacuation continues well into the evening, and at that point, the evacuation is complete. Our hospital, which had been continuously occupied for 275 years, is completely empty. Our staff are subsequently deployed to all of our sister public hospitals who absorbed the brunt of our closure until we fully reopened 3 months later. In the meantime, we reopened our emergency department as a freestanding unit, and then our outpatient services, and then finally the inpatient wards on February 7th. Thus completes our tale of woe. Bellevue Hospital came to a complete halt for the first time in nearly 300 years, and then put itself back together in 3 months. Let me close with a wonderful photo taken by Annie Leibowitz, the famous portrait photographer who took a number of photos after Sandy of first responders. This was taken of some participants of Bellevue's evacuation after the fact, with a couple of fashion models thrown in for poetic license. So, it is an interesting tale, a story of unexpected challenges met by teamwork, dedication, and heroism. And there's an important thread which runs through the entire narrative. It is the special role that the physicians played in keeping our patients safe. At every turn, I found physicians doing unexpected and extraordinary things, like the CV surgery fellow who went out into the storm to get the extra battery to buy an hour, the pediatric resident who defied me and carried her baby down 8 flights of stairs in the middle of the night, the ICU director convening an ad hoc ethics committee so they could make all the right choices, the chief of psychiatry defying government officials to demand a proper plan for her patients, the emergency medicine resident who volunteered to ride the ambulance and saved a patient's life, the chief of medicine who led the Bucket Brigade. In the face of this existential threat, our attendings and house staff stepped out beyond the boundaries of their traditional roles and did extraordinary things to keep their patients safe. Why? The answer to that question is really why we are here today. The white coat is a symbol of the sacred trust that physicians assume as they enter their profession. It is a magical key that gives you immediate, unconditional access to the inner sanctum. That special place where patients hold and share their most intimate thoughts, fears, and desires inside the trust circle. It is an exhilarating and sobering privilege to be in that inner sanctum and to experience the complete trust of a perfect stranger. Physicians must live up to that trust by doing whatever it takes to guide their patients, protect their confidences, and keep them safe. Whatever it takes, because the trust that patients put into their physicians knows no bounds. And you will experience that trust before you even deserve to, even as a medical student, by virtue of the white coat. It is a special privilege to join this magnificent profession, and I congratulate you and your families on this great honor. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you. Well, we're going to start the cloaking ceremony. A few little announcements. We have professional photographers here today that will get high-quality pictures of all those you love. So there's no reason to risk running down the stairs to take a photograph. The second is, if you're going to take photographs with your phone, hopefully not a note phone, keep the flash off so it doesn't interfere with the photographs being taken. So no flash photography. This entire program is being videotaped, and you can all watch it and fast forward to your favorite moments. I know I'm going to listen to that talk again and look at those slides. And we're going to have the students rise and come up in their colleges. And here's what a college is. We've created 4 colleges within our school. These are named after some of the true greats in medicine. And what they're meant to do are a number of things. One, to form a small community of support for each student. Each college is run by, we now have 3 advisory college directors for each college. They get to know those you love that are with us extremely well. And they're guiding them through this very difficult 4 years onto the successful match that we had this past year and we intend to have every year. So that's a very important part of it. Also, it's been created within the colleges that each of these young women and men here have a mentor in the year above them. The second year has a third-year mentor. The third year has a fourth-year mentor. They're all within the same college. So within each college is a sort of a family support system when they're here with us. So we're very proud of the colleges. The colleges designed, they're gonfalons. They're gonfalons, by the way. You've learned a word for the day. And with that, we're going to start. But I'd like you to help me in one other way. To get out of here on time, let's hold the applause until after the entire college has been cloaked, and we move on to the next one. So, with that, if I could ask the Blackwell College to rise and come forward, and I'll announce the advisory college directors for Blackwell who will be cloaking their students. And that is Aaron Pukanis and Anat Feingold. And away we go here. Zia Dohom Abdu Jababarova. Sayutha Ahmed. Christian Bruni. Olivia Coburn Flynn. Paul Comber. William Davis. Connor Dugan. Shumai Elamine. Michael Kilsey. Sneha Kola. Shifan Lee. Aisha Mohammed. Megan Monroe. Jessica Oribabor. Kristen Pacific. Prarthi Patel. Elizabeth Plotner. Christopher Rivera Pintado. Prasanth Romeo. Nicholas Russo. Madeline Sambolino and Lauren Treen. Congratulations to the Blackwell College. If I could ask the Cushing College to rise and come forward. Cloaking the Cushing College students will be their directors, Lisa Reed, Samir Badr, and Joanne Mazzarelli, if you could come forward. Andrew Lobd, Lauren Burgoon, Elise Candelaria, Matthew Fillingame, Krista Fry, Catherine Hamlet, Christopher Hendershot, Cheryl Howe, Adora Iboko, Nicole Yoakum, Cosima Laterza, and Cody Long. Sabrina Morris, Roland Nareen, Janina Nayunjan, Chioma Obanero, Dylan Oliver, Shaylee Patel, Riley Petrowitz, Samir Shah, Mary Catherine Skolos, Vincent Verchio, congratulations to the Cushing College. I'm impressed. Everybody's getting exactly like practice. It's perfect here. Can I ask the Osler College to please rise and come forward? And cloaking the Osler students will be Drs. Richard Fisher and Jay Vanston. Imad Owan, Karen Badura, Christine Collins. There's only two. Okay, thanks. Christine Collins. Gabriel Di Natale. Catherine Fenton. Berjor Gimme. Sarah Gleiberman. Janice Herzerikia. Melanie Hoffbauer. Adima Abanga. Azaz Cosby. Victoria Kim. Gabriel Machar. Stephanie DeFore. Ogechukwu Obijersi. Andy O'Loughlin. Melissa Olszakowski. Andrew Orlando. Timothy Renzi. Joshua Schimmel. Richard Suarez. And Laura Wolf. A round of applause for the Ochsner College. Now, if I could ask the Rush College students to rise and come forward. And cloaking the Rush College today are Tony Spevitz, Emily Scattergood, and Greg Kubicek, the advisory college directors for Rush. Ahmed Abdelhadi, Adenike Akimashan, Patrice Baptista, Jessica Chu, Payal Chaudhry, Miriam Cruz, Shirley Demetrius, Dane Dickey, sorry, I have here Patrick Ilhuli next. Chad Hinkle. Umu Keita. Shahana Malik, Stephen Milner, Matthew Nelson, Chelsea O'Corin, Sakshi Gandhi, I love it. That's terrific. Sean O'Neill, Kelsey Opalek, Allison Pers, Kaylee Stamen. Noor Tell. And Bobby Zhang. Congratulations to the Rush College.
I'd like to invite Dr. William Coker to the podium to lead us in the recitation of the Hippocratic Oath. Dr. Coker.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. How are we today? Good. So I've done a lot of teaching in this auditorium over the last 5 years. I think this is the first time I've addressed a full auditorium, so it's a wonderful feeling. That's mainly because the class size is too small to fill the auditorium. I should clarify that. So when I teach, I usually start off by asking if anybody has any questions about anything we've talked about. We're all good. Okay. So I feel very privileged to be able to stand before you today and participate in your white coat ceremony. On behalf of myself and all of the faculty of the medical school, I'd like to congratulate you on your accomplishments and tell you that we're expecting some really great things from you in the future. So what we're going to do this afternoon to sort of conclude the ceremony is recite the Hippocratic Oath. So I would like to ask all the students if they would stand for me at this point. I'd also like to invite any physicians who may be in attendance today to stand and renew your oath with the students. And as we say this oath, I'd like you all to think about the words that are contained in it, and we're all going to recite it together. I'm just going to be your lead along this. So if you'll follow along with me. I swear to fulfill to the best of my ability and judgment this covenant. I will respect the hard-won scientific gains of those physicians in whose steps I walk, and gladly share such knowledge as is mine with those who are to follow. I will apply for the benefit of the sick all measures that are required, avoiding those twin traps of overtreatment and therapeutic nihilism. I will remember that there is art to medicine as well as science, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug. I will not be ashamed to say, I know not, nor will I fail to call in my colleagues when the skills of another are needed for patient recovery. I will respect the privacy of my patients, for their problems are not disclosed to me that the world may know. Most especially, I must tread with care in matters of life and death. If it is given to me to save a life, all thanks. But it may also be within my power to take a life. This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. Above all, I must not play at God. I will remember that I do not treat a fever chart, a cancerous growth, but a sick human being whose illness may affect the person's family and economic stability. My responsibility includes these related problems if I am to care adequately for the sick. I will prevent disease whenever I can, for prevention is preferable to cure. I will remember that I remain a member of society with special obligations to all my fellow human beings, those of sound mind and body, as well as the infirm. If I do not violate this oath, may I enjoy life and art, respected while I live, and remembered with affection thereafter. May I always act so as to preserve the finest traditions of my calling, and may I long experience the joy of healing those who seek my help. Thank you and congratulations.
I'd like to once again thank Dr. Link for a wonderful white coat talk, and I'd like to congratulate all of the members of the class of 2020. You're off to a great start. Please join us for a reception in the atrium, which will start immediately. Thank you.
Many people have contributed to welcoming you to this wonderful day, and this is something that you can read at your convenience. Two other things that are important. We have CMSRU apparel on sale outside, out the doors to the left, 25% off. Wonderful presents for those in white coats. Not me, those, okay? And we're going to ask the students to stay in the auditorium for a little bit longer, and the reason is it's a wonderful tradition that they get their picture taken with their advisory college directors as one group picture. That takes a little bit to organize now that we're more than 50 students in a class. So we have food and refreshments in the lobby. Other than the students, feel free to go, and I look forward to talking to you outside. Take care.